He was standing on Fifth Avenue eating a slice of pizza, a Manhattan architect. Expensive suit, office across from the Empire State Building, just another Thursday lunch. Undercover officers had been watching him for weeks. They weren't there to arrest him. Not yet. They needed something he didn't know he was about to give them. He finished the slice, folded the box, dropped it in a public trash bin, and walked back toward his office. That was their moment. One officer moved in, pulled the box from the bin, sealed it in an evidence bag. Inside, a few crusts, some grease stains, and the biological material that would end a 13-year manhunt. One pizza box, 8 dead women. This is the story of Rex Heuermann, a registered architect, a Long Island father, a man who sat in boardrooms and rode commuter trains alongside the detectives trying to catch him, while carrying a secret so dark it took investigators over a decade to find the edge of it. Here's what no one could explain for 13 years. Women were vanishing from Long Island. Young women, vulnerable women, contacted through burner phones by someone who paid well and left no trace. Their bodies surfaced along a stretch of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, wrapped in burlap, placed with precision, hidden in plain sight. For over a decade, investigators had one hair, found on a burlap sack in 2010. The DNA was there, but the technology wasn't advanced enough to build a profile from it. So it waited. 13 years of silence. 13 years of families without answers. 13 years of a killer riding the same train as everyone else. And then, a pizza box changed everything. By the time you finish watching this, you will understand exactly how Rex Heuermann built 2 parallel lives, one on architectural blueprints, one on something far more chilling. You will see how a single discarded pizza crust connected a hair from a murder scene to a man no one suspected. You will understand how he selected his victims, how he tracked them, and how he almost got away with it forever. And you will feel the full weight of what was lost. 8 women, 8 lives, 8 families who waited over a decade just to hear a name. This is Cold Signal, and this case does not let go. Let's go back to where it began, not with a crime scene, but with a person. Her name was Amber Lynn Costello. She was 27 years old. She stood 4 feet 10 inches tall and weighed 100 pounds. She had a bright smile that people remembered long after they stopped seeing her. She grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, a small-town girl who moved through the country looking for something steadier than what she had been given. She was not a case file. She was not a statistic. Amber was deeply loved by her family. Her sister Kimberly Overstreet had worked hard to keep her close, to keep her anchored. Kimberly had helped Amber check into a rehabilitation program just 1 year before she disappeared. 28 days. Amber completed it. She came out the other side. According to people who knew her from those Florida years, even during her hardest seasons, Amber stayed connected to her faith. She attended church in Dundee, Florida, the Lion of Judah Foursquare Church, where friends described her as warm, present, genuinely trying. She loved to cook. She talked about it the way people talk about the thing they cannot stop thinking about, with a specific kind of light. She wanted to build something small and real, a catering business, something that was hers. That was the dream she was carrying on September 2nd, 2010. She had relocated to West Babylon, New York. She was sharing a house with several other people, all of them fighting the same battle with heroin. She had relapsed not long before that night. She was trying to climb back out again. Amber was not defined by her addiction. She was defined by the fact that she kept trying. That is the person who walked out of a house in West Babylon on September 2nd, 2010, and never came back. The evening started like dozens of evenings before it. A call came in. Someone Amber did not know. He had called several times over the preceding days. Persistent, patient, deliberate. He was offering $2,500. That was not a routine offer. That was the kind of number that made the risk feel different, that made the calculation shift. Amber's roommate, Dave Schaller, was there. He and Amber had an arrangement when clients came to the house. Schaller would play the role of outraged boyfriend, burst in, scare the client off, and the two of them would pocket whatever money had already exchanged hands. It was protection, improvised, imperfect, but it was something. This client did not come to the house. He said he would pick her up outside. Schaller watched from the window. The dark green truck pulled up, first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche. The man behind the wheel was large. Schaller would later describe him to police as looking like an ogre, tall, bulky, imposing in a way that registered immediately. Amber did not take her phone. She got in the truck, the door closed, the truck pulled away. And that was the last time anyone who loved her saw Amber Lynn Costello alive. No one reported her missing that night. Not that week. Not for months. Her remains were found on December 13th, 2010, along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. Discovered not because investigators were looking for her, but because they were searching for someone else entirely. A woman named Shannon Gilbert had vanished in May 2010. Police expanded the search along the south shore of Long Island, and what they found there stopped them cold. Not one body, 4. Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Amber Lynn Costello. All young women, all small in stature, all wrapped in the same material, heavy-duty camouflage burlap, the kind used for hunting blinds. All bound at the head, chest, and legs with practiced, deliberate precision. This was not random. This was not impulsive. Someone had done this before, and someone had planned every step. Investigators from the Suffolk County Police Department, the New York State Police, and the FBI converged on the scene. The discovery triggered a wider search along Ocean Parkway that would eventually uncover the remains of 10 victims in total, some of them going back to 1993. The profile that emerged was consistent. The killer targeted women who advertised escort services online, primarily through Craigslist and Backpage. He contacted them through phones that could not be traced. He paid well. He left almost nothing behind. Almost. On one of the burlap sacks recovered from the scene in 2010, investigators found a single hair. It did not belong to any of the victims. It was foreign to the scene. It was the one thing the killer had not accounted for. Forensic technicians submitted it for DNA analysis. The mitochondrial DNA profile came back, but the technology of 2010 could not generate enough data to run a meaningful match against existing databases. The results sat in an evidence file, waiting. Meanwhile, the public theory about who this killer was started taking shape, and it pointed entirely in the wrong direction. For the better part of a decade, the prevailing assumption was that this case had a certain kind of killer at its center. Someone on the margins, someone operating outside mainstream society, a drifter, a local lowlife, someone the community could recognize as an outsider, a deviant, a person who looked like what people imagined a predator looks like. The case attracted intense media scrutiny. Speculation circled around a local police officer who had been involved in a related disappearance. Rumors spread. Theories multiplied. Every few months, someone on an internet forum was convinced they had identified the killer. Rex Heuermann was not on any list. He had no criminal record. He was a licensed, registered architect, running a successful consultancy firm in Midtown Manhattan, RH Consultants and Associates, located on Fifth Avenue, directly across from the Empire State Building. He had worked on high-profile building projects in New York City. He appeared in professional interviews discussing architecture and building codes. He had a wife, a daughter, a stepson with special needs. He lived in a quiet suburban house in Massapequa Park, Long Island, 15 miles from Gilgo Beach. Every morning, he took the commuter train from Massapequa Park to Penn Station. He sat in those carriages. He read the same newspapers covering the investigation. He watched the same news broadcasts discussing the search for the Gilgo Beach killer. He was the Gilgo Beach killer. And nobody knew. The breakthrough did not come from a confession. It did not come from a witness. It came from a vehicle registration database. When Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney took office in January 2022, he made the Gilgo Beach case a priority. A dedicated task force was assembled, investigators who reviewed the entire case from the beginning. Every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every phone record. They went back to Dave Schaller's description from 2010. A dark green, first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche. That was a distinctive truck, sparsely sold on Long Island. Investigators cross-referenced vehicle registration records against the physical description Schaller had given. Large, tall, imposing male, filtering by geographic proximity to the crime scenes. One name kept surfacing. Rex Heuermann, Massapequa Park, owner of a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche. Investigators pulled his records. Then they pulled everything. What they found on his computer stopped them cold. A folder. A file investigators described as a planning document, a methodical, written blueprint of his crimes. It listed supplies. It listed disposal locations he referred to as dump sites. It contained reminders to himself, burn gloves, consider a hit to the neck next time. He had been thinking about this the way he thought about architecture, as a problem to be solved, as a structure to be built and maintained. There was more. Over 200 Google searches related to the Gilgo Beach investigation. Heuermann monitoring the case from his home computer, tracking how close investigators were getting. He searched for images of the victims, then he searched for images of their families, their sisters, their children. He was trying to locate them. The task force went dark. They did not breathe a word of where the investigation was heading. As District Attorney Tierney later explained to reporters, they wanted the one person who mattered to believe it was business as usual. Surveillance began, physical surveillance, digital surveillance, cell tower mapping, and then they traced the burner phones. Heuermann had used a series of prepaid phones to contact victims, discarding each one after use. But cell tower data does not lie. Every time a burner call connected to one of the victims, the ping came from the same cluster of towers that covered his Manhattan office. The calls followed his commute pattern exactly. The Sappequa Park in the mornings, Midtown Manhattan during working hours, back along the same route in the evenings. The digital shadow of a man who thought he had left no shadow at all. But they still needed physical DNA. They needed something that would hold in court. Something that would match the hair on that burlap sack from 2010. So they waited, and they watched. January 2023, a Fifth Avenue, Manhattan. Rex Heuermann finished a slice of pizza. He folded the box. He dropped it in a public trash bin. He walked back toward his office. An undercover officer moved the moment he was gone. The box went into an evidence bag. The crust went to the lab. Forensic scientists compared the mitochondrial DNA extracted from that pizza crust to the profile built from the hair found on the burlap sack 13 years earlier. It was a match. Not a partial match, not a probable match, a match. The hair on that burlap, the one piece of physical evidence that had waited 13 years for technology to catch up, belonged to Rex Heuermann. On July 13, 2023, a team of investigators arrested Rex Heuermann outside his Manhattan office. He was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder in connection with the deaths of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Lynn Costello. He was listed as prime suspect in the murder of Merkvan Marine Brannard Barnes. He wept in custody. His attorney told the media that his client was in tears, saying through sobs that he did not do this. The charges kept coming. By mid-2024, prosecutors had added the murders of Valerie Mack, Jessica Taylor, and Sandra Castilla. The case expanded across 3 decades of killings. On April 8, 2026, in a Suffolk County courtroom in Riverhead, New York, Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty to the murders of 7 women and admitted to the killing of an 8th. He stood in a dark suit, hands shackled behind his back, and answered yes when the judge asked whether he had killed each victim by strangulation. He received 3 consecutive life sentences, followed by 4 consecutive sentences of 25 years to life. His sentencing date was set for June 17, 2026. As part of his plea arrangement, according to prosecutors, Heuermann agreed to cooperate with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit to sit with federal investigators and explain, in his own words, what drove him to do what he did for 17 years. Investigators searched his home in Massapequa Park. They found what prosecutors described as a soundproof room in the basement, a space he had used when his family was away. His wife and children, according to court records, were confirmed to have been out of state during each period when the killings are believed to have occurred. His wife, Asa Ellerup, had no knowledge of what her husband was. Her attorney stated clearly that she never wanted to believe the man she had been married to for 27 years, the father of her daughter, was capable of what prosecutors described. She was not the only one who didn't know. His colleagues didn't know. His neighbors didn't know. The passengers on the 742 from Massapequa Park didn't know. The people who watched him discuss New York building codes in professional interviews didn't know. Nobody knew. And that is the part of this case that stays with you long after the verdict. Not the evidence, not the technology, not even the pizza box. It is the image of Amber Lynn Costello getting into that truck. 27 years old, 4 feet 10, carrying a dream about a catering business she would never get to build. She got into a vehicle because a man with money and patience and a plan had called her enough times that the number on the table seemed worth the risk. She was not reckless. She was not careless. She was a person trying to survive, the way people in hard circumstances do, making calculations that should not have been that dangerous. Rex Heuermann made them dangerous. For 17 years, he moved through the world as though the women he killed were problems he had solved and filed away. He searched for their families. He watched the investigation close in on him. He sat across from the Empire State Building and built floor plans while the families of his victims sat in rooms somewhere on Long Island waiting for a phone call that never came. Amber Costello's sister Kimberly helped her get clean. She drove her to rehab. She believed that her sister was going to find her way back. Amber was trying. That is the thing that does not leave you. She was trying.